What's up, everybody? CJ here, aka Ham Sanity. Welcome to a video instead of a stream. I know it's a little different. This video, you read the title. This is just me keeping up with everything that's going on. This is like here's where we're at in the BackBreaker Dynasty, as I like to call it. We're gonna start with the Pro League, and then I'll do the D League. So this video, I have no idea how long this is about to be. I don't really care. Let's get started. So here's the schedule, Pro League schedule. If you wanna, here's the games that have already been played. The teams in red lost. The teams in green won. The rest of these games, weeks 2 through 13, have yet to be played. So yeah, there's 13 weeks. Every team gets a bye through weeks 9 through 13. Every team gets one bye. And yeah, there's the schedule. Here's all the information about what games are going to happen in what order. I always play so when week 3 starts, I'll play the game here. I'll play this game at the top, and I just work my way down. So yeah, pretty simple. Then when that's over, I move to week 4 and continue. So I actually start with the serial killers in almost every game except week 9. It's just how I made the schedule. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Playoffs. 6 teams make the playoffs. The 2 top teams, one from each conference. I'll show you the conferences in a minute. The top team from each conference gets a spot in the conference game, and then the wild card is actually kind of like the divisional, but not really. It's just wild card. 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5, which really, it says 3, 6, and 4, 5, but that's really 2 and 3 in one conference, and then this is 2 and 3 from the other conference. I just haven't fixed that up yet. So yeah, here's the conferences. Oh, we might just do flat out. Maybe I'll get rid of the conferences. I don't know, but let's move on to standings. And here's the conferences I was talking about. There they are. I just have them set as East, West. And yeah, that's just what they are. Here's the entire standings, though. So the Platypuses, Lazy Platypuses, and Miami Hurricanes, both only teams undefeated, 2-0. And you have 6 teams go 1-1. Grumpy Cats, Spartans, Cardinals, Serial Killers, Vaqueros, and Panthers. And then the Chargers and Sunbirds lost both games. So yeah, here's the exact same records you just saw, except divided by conference. Like I said, I still haven't decided what I want to do with conferences right now, if I want to keep them or not. I'll figure that out pretty soon. Here's what I want to look at in terms of standings, though. These power rankings here. This is kind of based on stats and kind of just based on my own opinion, because it's a power ranking. It's not an actual ranking. So yeah, I have the Chargers as the best team in the league. This number over here is their total rank, which just adds their offensive and defensive rank. Their offensive rank is, if you sort by this, then that's the best offense is the Platypuses, second's the Chargers. You get it. That's offensive rank, and this right here is the defensive rank. So yeah, and then you add those two together, and the teams with the lowest numbers are ranked highest. And that's just how I did it. It's what I like, and I think it works pretty well. So the Chargers I have as the best team. They don't have the best offense or the best defense, but they're second, in my opinion, at least through 2 games. That's where we're at. If you didn't pay attention to the schedule like 5 seconds ago, we've played 2 games because we just finished week 2. So yeah, that got them as the best team. Hurricanes are second, even though their offense is 5th. At least right now, statistically, it's around 5th. I do have them above the Vaqueros. Hurricanes and Vaqueros both right here. If you look, they both have 6 total, but I think they're probably a better team. Number 1 defense, and I think that offense can improve as the season goes along. The rest of it you can look at for yourself. Pause the video if needed. Lazy Platypuses do have the number 1 offense, at least statistically at the moment. They're passing the ball very well. I think they actually lead the league in passing yards, which we'll look at the stats later. And they're also doing pretty good running. So yeah, check it out. That's the power rankings. Now we're going to move on to the records. So we have no single season or career records, which is what these are. When the season finishes, I'll fill this in. But right now we just have single game records. Here's all the single game records Yeah, as you can see, Phillip Rivers had 404 yards. That was in week 1. You've got Carson Palmer, Sam Lathrop, 4 touchdowns, but Carson Palmer, Hamza Ricks, 3 picks. These are all in one game. Yeah, you can look at all of these things that really stand out. Keenan Allen, 3 touchdowns. Keenan Allen, 207 yards. Julius Peppers getting 4 sacks. That's pretty impressive. 4 sacks in a game. Hendricks with 18 tackles. That's pretty impressive. And then, yeah, it's basically it. Most of the rushing, actually, I would say all the rushing stats aren't really that impressive. The 18.4 per attempt for Phillip Rivers, 404 yards. Those are both pretty impressive. The 21 yards per carry by Ken Dorsey. That's the quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes. He literally ran the ball 1 time for 21 yards. That's why that's not super impressive. But yeah, that's the league leaders. We'll go ahead and keep this rolling. Let's move on to the league leaders. I could show you the stats for every single player on every team. I have that, but that would take way too long. We'll start with passing. So here's the league leaders in passing. I just have it sorted by yards. I definitely don't think that Derek Future is the best quarterback, even though he leads the league in yards. He's under 60% completion. He's averaging less than 10 yards a throw. He's like bottom 5 in touchdowns, and he has 4 picks. So, yeah, but here's the rankings in yards. And I'll just sort by, I like to sort by yards per attempt. I think that shows, because Phillip Rivers leads the league in yards per attempt, 14.3, which means he's, getting the most yards every time he throws the ball. But if you sort by attempts, he's actually dead last in attempts. So that's pretty crazy. I think that just goes to show that yards isn't necessarily the best way to figure out who's playing the best, because he's thrown the ball 35 times. That's literally half as many times as the guy with the most attempts. So I like to go yards per attempt. I definitely think that shows who's really balling out. Phillip Rivers' yards per attempt is good. Cam Newton's yards per attempt is crazy. And then Palmer and Dorsey are above 10. And you have Begeman and Future and Waxworth above 9. Now, if you look at completion percentage, I also think this is a good trait for quarterbacks. It's a good sign of who's really passing the ball well. And Cam Newton, crazy percentage, 77.8. And then you have 5 guys. Here's the 5 guys, all over 60%, which is pretty good. And your 4 bottom passers in terms of accuracy. And Hamza Ricks, only 400 yards and only not even 50% passing. So, yeah, not doing so hot. And Laquan Jackson, same thing. Not really. He has less than 400 yards. And he's averaging 6.8 in an attempt. So, yeah, that's passing. Well, actually, real fast, there's Carson Palmer, 6 picks, leads the league in interceptions. Touchdowns, you have Cam Newton and Sam Lathrop at the top with Palmer, Begeman, and Dorsey with 4. And through 2 games, Laquan Jackson's been sacked 10 times. So that's the passing stats. We'll go ahead and look over at rushing. You have 2 guys with 140 yards, LaDainian Tomlinson and Duke Johnson, representing the Chargers and Hurricanes respectively. I like Thompson better here because he has way less carries, 13, and he has the same amount of yards, so 3.5 a carry. Actually leads the league in terms of running backs. There's 2 quarterbacks on this list, Carson Waxworth and Laquan Jackson. I have them highlighted. They both average over 3.5 a carry, but among running backs, LaDainian Tomlinson leading the league, but no touchdowns. Rest of the guys, some notables, Munoz, 2.7 a carry and 2 touchdowns. Megaman's got a touchdown over 106 yards. If you look at LaShawn and Laquan Jackson, the brothers that play in the backfield for the serial killers, they're combined for pretty decent numbers. Here's another same team combo in the backfield, Waxworth and Leary. That's 183 yards combined and 2 touchdowns. So pretty deadly combo. Personally, I think David Johnson can do a lot better. I think Jonathan Stewart maybe could do a little better. But what I really am looking at here is Jefferson. I think Jefferson at least through the first 2 games, worst back in the league, 1.9 yards a carry. Let's go to receiving, and then we'll do defense quickly, and then we'll move to the D-League. I feel like this video is probably already getting a little bit too long. Jeter is the second-string receiver for the Grumpy Cats. Leads them in yards. Actually, leads the league, in yards with 230. And he has 2 touchdowns. He's playing amazing. Then we move on to Kelvin Benjamin, second in yards. He's also playing really good. 27.4 yards per grab, and he has 3 touchdowns. I got to say, receiving, he's my favorite receiver in terms of performance through week 2. I do think he's playing better than Jeter because more touchdowns, more yards per catch. He has 4 less catches, but he has 3 less yards. So I think it's obvious he's done actually a little bit better statistically. He just hasn't had as many grabs. Larry Fitz is up next. He's got a touchdown. He's averaging 30 a grab, only 7 grabs. D. Miggy got 11 grabs. Keenan Allen, 207 yards and 3 touchdowns on 7 grabs. All of those stats are from the first game, from week 1. Week 2, he literally had no catches. He didn't even catch the ball in week 2. So that's something to keep watch of. Here's a combo, Yuppie Guppy and Marty Wine combining for well over 300 yards. Lazy Platypus combo, watch out for that. Michael Irvin and Andre Johnson looking like a dominating duo for the Hurricanes. Watch out for them. And who's one more? So, okay. There's actually... Yeah, we'll just do this one. You got Patrick Tillis and Jeter. Now, Tillis is a speed guy. Jeter's showing more some strength, but Jeter's the one breaking off the big plays. He's the second-string receiver to Tillis. So, with Tillis being the starting receiver, I mean, maybe he starts having some big gains. That could be a real deadly combo. Yeah, that's basically it. There's the rest of the guys. Henry Baugh, Andre Johnson had that big game in week 2. Tyler Coffey, Miles Hauser is the only guy for the serial killers even on here. 115 yards. I think there's actually some receivers with more yards than him, but I had to get someone representing that team here. Then we'll move to defense. Hendricks with 27 tackles. Hendricks and Barbour, 27 tackles in 2 games. This is crazy to me. There's 6 players with 20 or more tackles through 6 games. It's a lot of tackles. Nick Morales, Sean Merriman, just to name a few. Torque Lewis, Antonio Cromartie. Tyrann Mathieu has 18 tackles. Charles Johnson, 18 and 2 sacks. Look at Walter for the Grumpy Cats, has 17 and 3 sacks. And then Lucky Charms and Julius Peppers both have 5 sacks apiece, leading the league right now, representing the serial killers and Panthers respectively. So that's pretty nice. And then the leader in interceptions is Maheem Shazbot with 3 picks through 2 games for the Vaqueros. So that basically wraps up the D-League. The Pro League. Now we're going to move to the D-League right here. So yeah, here's the D-League schedule. I've already played through 4 weeks. I think I only uploaded like week 1 and maybe some week 4 action or week 2. I know I haven't uploaded all of them. Yeah, I can't really fix that problem, but I can just move on. So yeah, there's the outcomes of any games if you're curious. We'll look at records in a second. Here's the games left. In the D-League, there's only 6 teams, so only 4 are going to make it to the playoffs. Let's move to the standings. These power rankings are a little old. I haven't messed with the power rankings, so I would say don't watch those. Don't look at those. Just look at the records. Scorpions are 3-1, which I didn't expect that. Wolves, Savages, and others are sitting at 2-2. And the Bone Collectors and the Bulls tied. That was a stream. I know I streamed that game. Here it is. I know I streamed that game. I remember streaming it. It was horrible. They tied, and it easily could have been a win for the Bulls. The Bulls had a game-winning field goal lined up. They just let the clock run out before they kicked it. So, yeah, I really wish the Bulls would have won that game. I hate to see a tie, but it happened. Move on to the single game records. There's all the records. Yeah, pretty good stats there. Malcolm Smith, 110 rushing yards. Cody Smith with 231 receiving yards in a game. 17 tackles for Steiner. You got a handful of guys. Let me extend this. You've got 3 guys with 3 sacks in a game. You got 1 guy with 3 picks. Carlington for the others. No, he plays for the Savages. He's a safety. And yeah, it's all the stats there. So let's go ahead and look at the league leaders statistically in the D League. Starting with passing, Aiden Daggs, in my opinion, best quarterback in the league. Leads the league in yards. Leads the league in yards per attempt. He's second in completion percentage. If you check it out, sorry, I should have sorted by yards to start. There's the yards leaders. But leads the league in yards. Leads the league in yards per attempt. He's second in completion percentage by 0.1. So basically, leads the league. He's tied for first in touchdowns, so leads the league. He's dead last, or tied for dead last, so I guess just tied for last, with Tim Tebow, 2 interceptions, so that's leading the league. If you'd want less interceptions. Only flaw with his stats, 21 sacks. He's taking twice as many sacks as basically every other quarterback in the league. Now, granted, that might be why his attempts are also tied for lowest in the league. Him and KJ Holland, both 94 attempts. But I think that he's just maybe trying to, on a lot of plays, it's either, I've got some speed, so maybe I'm going to try and run and get away from the sack. Or maybe a lot of times it's, I'd rather take a sack than throw a pick. And his team is doing pretty well. And obviously, he's doing so well statistically every other place. So maybe take that with a grain of salt. Looking at the other quarterbacks, though, you have Joker Moxley, who is second in yards. 10 yards a throw, so doing pretty good. The percentage is kind of lower-ish. 57, basically. 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. I think he's still good, though. Just maybe watch out for the inaccuracies, because he's good everywhere except the completion percentage. Jake Lunt, good completion percentage, leads the league. The yards aren't as good as the yards per throw aren't as good as the 2 men above him, but still doing pretty well. I think he's actually one of the better quarterbacks, probably top 3 in my opinion. I think he's better than Moxley, if I'm being honest. Then we'll go to Jared Fogel here, 879 yards. So not so good. His completion percentage is low, and he has a negative touchdown to interception ratio. More picks than touchdowns is never good. Combined with the other stats, Fogel not doing so hot. I'm going to skip Tebow and go to Holland. Basically say the same thing. He's dead last in yards. He's bottom 2 in yards per attempt. He's only throwing 50% completion. That's never good. And more touchdowns than picks. More picks than touchdowns. Once again, not good. Tim Tebow actually might be better than like Moxley up here. Moxley just has a lot of throws, maybe. I don't know. Moxley is averaging more per throw, but hear me out. He's probably competing with Moxley is what I should say. He has a much higher completion percentage than Moxley. And granted, he does have less touchdowns. But still, I think he's top 4, maybe even top 3. Especially, actually, I would say if you say that passing-wise, he's kind of on the same level as Moxley, in my opinion. But he can run, right? He's a real good runner. And so I think he's probably better there. But we're looking at passing. But speaking of running, let's move on to rushing down here. Here's the rushing table. Malcolm Smith leads the way, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns through 4 games. Now, Malcolm Smith, Tim Tebow, and Arthur Schur, highlighted them all just there. They're all on the Scorpions, all 3 of them. And this is the top 8 players in the league, in the D League, in yards. So that's pretty impressive that one team has 3 guys in the top 8 in yards in rushing. That's pretty nice. That's pretty impressive. So I think they're obviously the best team on the ground, especially when your quarterback and your backup can do what they've been doing. Blake Hammond and Faraday, both 223, representing the Wolves and the others. Faraday does have 2 fumbles, with 2 touchdowns, and 2.8 carries. Pretty good in the D League. Hamza Dinkins, honestly, I kind of expected more out of him, but 2 touchdowns, a fumble, 214 yards, still doing pretty good. And Only 4 guys over 200 yards through 4 games. So that means there's only 4 players that are averaging more than 50 yards a game. Tim Tebow, 116. He is a quarterback, though. We already talked about him. And we talked about Arthur Schur already. He's a second string, so only 16 carries. He's averaging 3.8 a carry. That's pretty good. Looking at Makisha Egeman and Owen Murray, both of these players for the Savages and the Bulls, I would say they're not good running backs. They're the worst 2 running backs in the league. Egeman a little better than Murray because the yards per attempt is higher, but Egeman does have a fumbling problem. 3 fumbles, leading the league in fumbles. And then Murray, 1.5 yards a carry. That's basically never good. Let's move on to a receiving highlight for the Wolves. Leads the way, exactly 420 yards. I guess highlight smoking that dank. No, but seriously, playing pretty good. 420 yards for the Wolves. Only guy for the Wolves over 200 yards, actually, though. So they looks like they really like highlight. McCleveland and Kelly Lunt. Yeah. Both for the Bulls. That's a receiver and tight end. Both well over 300 yards. Combined for both well over 700 yards. And only 1 touchdown between them, though. And if you look at this other combo, for the others, I Suck and Thomas Brownlee, well over 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. So that's a pretty deadly combo. Others' passing game has been pretty much on fleek. You know, they're hooping. They're playing pretty good. Ed LaPlante for the Savages. He's balling out 362 and 3 touchdowns. And his counterpart, the first string receiver for the Savages, isn't actually on this chart, but he has 308 yards. That's Cody Smith. He has more yards than Kaminsky and York, but he's not on the list because, well, I wanted to get someone from every single team represented on this list. So, yeah, he's not on here. But keep that in mind. And I think Cody Smith also has 1 touchdown. We've already talked about Lunt and Brownlee. He's moved Kaminsky and York real quick, both leading their team in yards. Kaminsky, of course, looking a little bit better. He has 80 more yards and 2 touchdowns and much better yards per catch, but both doing good, both leading their team. But the fact that the Scorpions' best receiver technically wouldn't make the top 10. Yes, this is the top 8, but it's not actually the top 8 in yards. Like I said, there's Cody Smith, and there's some other guys too who have more than 216 yards. They're just not on the list because I only wanted to show 8. So keep that in mind. Scorpions only got 1 guy over 200 yards, 216, but they got 3 guys in the top 8 rushing. So obviously a running team. And real quickly here, let's look at the defense, then I'll end the video. Defense, I have it sorted by tackles. Well, not yet. Now I have it sorted by tackles. And yeah, you can see all the tackles through 4 games. I think that's basically expected. What I really want to look at here is Carlington's leading the league with 3 interceptions. And I think Katron Hegman on the same team, also 3 interceptions. But Carlington got all 3 of those interceptions in the same game. Now, Hegeman's not on here just because he doesn't have as many tackles, and I knew I'd remember that. Miller, 34 and 3 for the Savages. Looking at real quick, let's look at Kramer for the Scorpions. He's got 6 sacks. That leads the league in sacks. That's impressive. McKinnon has 4 sacks for the Bulls. Pretty nice D end. Kramer's a D end too. Carlington's a safety I mentioned earlier. Ethan Smith, also a safety. No interceptions, but he has 4 sacks. He's tied for second in the league in sacks. And he's a safety. Safety for the Wolves, so that's nice. I didn't mention Leary with 32, I don't think, for the others. And then you have Megaman, Sadnene Megaman, 2 sacks, 29 tackles. So 3rd in the league in tackles, at least for representing the team. I'm not exactly sure if I have the leaders in tackles. I was kind of looking for players with a good combo of high tackles and good numbers of sacks or good numbers of picks. That's what this list is, just kind of good all-around defensive players. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Ethan Smith has the 4 sacks at safety. He also has 2 forced fumbles. And Carlington with the 3 interceptions leading the league, he also has a forced fumble. So Don't sleep on those players knocking the ball loose. But that's basically it for this video. This is just like this is where we're at in the dynasty at this point. I will definitely be streaming soon, and I'm going to try to keep the streams flowing because I want to get through this season, not as fast as I can, but it's just fun to play it out. So I want to see it get through, and I don't know, I'm kind of ready for playoff football already. So yeah, that's it for this one. Like the video if obviously you liked it, and go ahead and comment anything down below you want to talk to me about. In terms of, I've actually got a few questions about making teams and making players. No, no one can make a team right now. Probably not, at least for a long time. In terms of players, I'm contemplating the idea of letting people make players this late into the D-League season, but I'm not so sure about it yet. That's for another video when I'll decide. For right now, this video's over. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Peace.